Thank you very much for that. Because we're starting a little bit late, but the meditation was brilliant, and I'm a very big advocate of Mission B, and I'm very grateful to you for having done this and ground us. We're all in a different place than we were 10 minutes ago. I'd like to introduce our next performer now, and she's far more than a performer. This is my dear friend, Aliza Hava. Aliza Hava has done a tremendous amount of work in the Middle East. In the area of peace, has produced multiple concerts in Israel. She's working on a second album now with multiple Grammy Award-winning producers. She has played all over the world, and she is an entrepreneur. Has a new company called Musicians Base that's very much in the spirit of blockchain, designed to allow musicians to manage their own life and their own career instead of having to depend upon other people. She is first and foremost an advocate for climate action and for humanity and peace. Thank you, Louise.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to thank David for inviting me here today, and also GloCha. I had the pleasure of singing and performing at one of their first events at the UN 7 years ago, so this is really nice to see them having us come out. And just a brief introduction of the song that I'm going to sing today. The song is called Rise, and it's a theme that I think we can all relate to in terms of what's going on in the world today. And the song talks about the global family, one human family. And the characters in the song, they relate to each of us and our relations and our mother, the earth. And yeah, I just want to give you a little context. My brother's been shot down. My sister's been battered and used. My child has been handed a gun. Mother's been raped and abused. We will rise, stand upright, we will burn like candles in the night. We will learn to sing, not to fight unless it's for our freedom right. We will hold each other's hands, try
which is we're all here together trying to figure out how to move beyond words, action, good feeling. How do we get beyond social responsibility? How do we get to actual action? We don't have time anymore for talking. We really don't. We have to come together as one people. And there's something about a great movie, not a good movie, but a great movie, or great music, or a great experience that replicates life, that triggers parts of the body to really respond to information. And at any given time in our life, at any moment, every one of us has 5 to 7 problems we're trying to solve. If you want to teach somebody, you have to make sure that your problem is in on the inside. One of the most powerful ways to teach is to create environments that replicate life. They're called location-based entertainments, or LBEs, or aquariums. So I would like to invite George Jacob. Hopefully he's here. I don't see him on the scan. There he is. George. I would like to invite your actual host. George is the head of the not only the aquarium, but the Institute for the Bays. And please come and introduce yourself and tell people where you're sitting and where this is going.
Thanks, George. This has been a really exciting week for San Francisco, and especially Bay.org. We are the largest watershed conservation group in the Bay Area with a staff of 200. And Aquarium is one of the 6 institutions that we lead. We operate the Sea Lion Center, the Aquarium of the Bay, the Bay Model in Sausalito, the Bay Institute, the Bay Academy, and the Eco Center Park at Terrence Head, which is in a very underserved community. Between these institutions, we get 750,000 visitors on average a year. We cater to about 30,000 children for free each year, and 9,000 children in underserved communities through 34 internship programs that are funded by SFPUC. And our plan is to change this aquarium into a combination of an aquarium, a Sea Lion Center, an eco park, and a deep ocean exploration research facility, and also a climate change and ocean conservation living museum. We started this process of planning last year, and what I'm going to share with you has not been shared in public yet. October 5th is the unveiling of the vision for what we are now calling the Ecotarium with Dr. Jill Biden. So if you're in San Francisco, please come to the unveiling of the vision. The plan is hinging on sort of 3 pillars. One is economic rejuvenation, education engagement, and environmental conservation. In doing so, we would like to engage about 250,000 children for free each year. So that's the goal that we're working with. And it's a complex process, as you know, that any new construction on the Embarcadero is fraught with a number of stakeholder issues and permitting issues and so on and so forth. So it's not going to happen overnight, but we'll try to move as quickly as possible to get the permits and then this new facility sort of open by 2022. So it'll take about 18 months for permits and about 2.5 years for construction. The challenge is a little complicated for us because we have currently 23,000 animals in the aquarium, and I'm presuming that you have a tour, a behind-the-scenes tour of the aquarium after this session, with about 97 species. And most of our animals are saltwater, and they're grown from the bay. And as you can probably surmise, that the bay is not the healthiest in terms of ocean quality and its pH levels and plastic pollution, microplastics, and so on. So the new premise will actually address the issues of ocean pollution, sea level rise. It will also address a string of new technologies that are unfolding right here in the Bay Area. There are technologies at the nano level and micro level that are happening at the Lawrence Labs in UC Berkeley and other premises where clean tech experimentation is happening on a number of levels. The new building incorporates some of those new technologies that includes generating power using a biomimetic facade with California species of microalgae. It has some oyster filters and wind farms and a whole microgrid that is using fish waste as the base for fuel cells and so on. So what you're going to see is a work in progress. It's not fully crystallized yet, but in a couple of weeks when you come on October 5th, you will get the spectrum of what you're planning. No photography, please. No, please.
No water, no life. No blue, no green.
All of you who love this sea, help us protect her.
Aquariums and zoos have a vitally important role in sharing with people the amazing animal life that surrounds us, but that we may not have a chance to see firsthand.
Vision for remaking the aquarium into a center for education, inspiration, and solutions for the environmental challenges of the Bay. And hopefully the Bay Area can now be more of a leader and show the way to the rest of the world as we deal with these global problems.
And I was so inspired and blown away that it reminded me of my dad's vision back in 1975, year 39. It was that big of an idea, and I think that it is entirely...
having 250,000 children come for free is going to be underwritten by a significant amount of philanthropy from Silicon Valley and from San Francisco. So ultimately, it's about them, it's about our future, it's about the generation of brain standard, largely one-sided story. So to that end, please feel free to reach out. My email is very simple, it's george@big.org. Be happy to engage at any level possible. Any questions I can answer?
When's the question?
So, like I said, our anticipation is permitting will take about 18 months to 20 months, 24 months maximum. Break down and then
Just give 40 seconds on your background as an experienced designer.
I plan and design museums. I've been doing it for 33 years. And I've worked in many countries and over 100 assignments. And most recently, I built a dinosaur museum up north in Alberta. And over the years, I've worked on a number of different subjects, including paleontology, entomology, archaeology, you name it. And it gives me immense joy to see these projects succeed, and more joy when I see people sort of use the premise, and it makes civil society stronger, and these institutions will have society for this remain long after this might be gone.
I wonder if the fact that his last assignment was with dinosaurs, if that has any context on our mission here. Thank you very much, George. Thank you to everybody. Again, this is the very first of these philanthropic breakfasts. Our goal is to figure out how to evolve that industry. There's about, as I understand, about $6 trillion in philanthropy, and I heard that the underarching thesis is that people don't know where to put it, where and how to put it in a manner where they can get a strong sense of ROI and they can optimize their impact. But it's all about collaboration and bringing communities together. And I use that to introduce our next speaker briefly, which is Sebastian Rosemont. Sebastian is the Green Cities Coordinator for the Earth Day Network. And it's very much on this wave of bringing people together. I don't believe we have time to compete anymore as human beings. We have to come together. And so on that note, why don't we come together on the stage and I'll leave.
Thank you for that, and thank you to GloCha for having us. I'm delighted to represent Earth Day Network, and we are also very excited to be partners with GloCha working going forward. So Earth Day Network, we are a network of over 50,000 partners in over 150 countries around the world. And we work to, our mission is to broaden, diversify, and activate the environmental movement. And we have an opportunity in 2020, it will be the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, to engage people around the world across cultural, political, social, and economic boundaries. And the potential there is huge. And we like to look at what happened on the first Earth Day in 1970 to see what that potential is. In 1970, excuse me, I'm a little bit nervous.
Doing a great job.
In 1970, 20 million Americans came out into the streets and to demand. We had, the cities were hazy, they were covered in smog, rivers were on fire, and 20 million Americans came out into the street to demand healthy and safe communities. And it was what they wanted. It was an enormous mobilization that they wanted, the formation of the EPA, and the passage of the Clean Air Act, Clean Water Act, and the Endangered Species Act, which as of this morning are all still in place. As far as I know, I haven't checked the news. But so these are, when people people are engaged at the local level, when they come out into their communities, you can really make that impact. And in 2020, in this interconnected world, we have the possibility to have that same level of impact at the global level. All of us are here in San Francisco this week talking about it, and when we all go home, that's where the action happens, in our communities, in our countries. So I'd like to just, a couple of the initiatives that we are working on. We have different programs. I work with cities and mayors. We are working with faith organizations. Education and youth empowerment is a huge focus of ours. We work with K-12 universities to really build the movement and empower the next generation of environmental leaders. And a couple of our key initiatives for 2020, one is the Earth Challenge 2020, and we're partnering with the State Department and the Wilson Center, and it is a citizen science project. And the way that we're developing it is it will start with working with universities and investors to hold hackathons and to generate new ideas of how we can tackle environmental issues such as air quality and water quality, and then develop those tools and to get them into the hands of citizens and the public to be able to generate quality data. Because what happens is we have all our agencies and universities that have high-powered measuring tools, but they can't put them everywhere. And so getting tools into the hands of citizens can really generate a massive database where we can then put that, and if we can have quality data, then researchers and policymakers can use it to really design, to find out how to have the biggest impact at the local level and community level. So we're working to develop those tools. The Earth Challenge 2020 part comes in April of 2020, where we will launch this and hope to gather 1 billion data points during the month of April, which will then launch this database, which will then turn over to an international body to be the steward and caretaker of this database, and make it accessible to policymakers and researchers. Another one of our initiatives is the Great Global Cleanup. Plastic pollution is is a major issue of ours, and we're again working with partners around the world for what will be the largest ever volunteer engagement and volunteer movement for organized cleanups around the world, develop the tools to be able to record all of the things that they are collecting, and again, find out what some of the problem issues are, what types of, we all know that single-use plastics are a major problem, what are some of the biggest ones, how can we, where are they, rivers, oceans, beaches, just in our communities, and how can we, how can we target to have the highest impact. We are also exploring the possibilities with GloCha for creating an app using blockchain in a sense, how do we track and how do we record all of these actions that we are that are happening around the world, verifying it and incentivizing these actions. So we're excited to continue exploring that. And again, this is the opportunity is there in 2020 to reach and engage people the people who need to be engaged at the local level in their communities to really have that same level of impact. We are facing a whole new level of environmental and climate issues than we were in 1970, and it requires engagement across sectors, and it requires the support of everybody, and we need the tools and the resources to make it happen.
Thank you.
One of the things that Sebastian talked about was the need to aggregate data, billion points of data. There's in fact a lot of data out there on things like weather changes and CO2 penetration numbers and sea level rise. A couple of years ago, I was sitting at the Spinnaker restaurant. How many people here know the Spinnaker restaurant? Right on the water. And it was a beautiful sunny day, and the bay was completely flat. And I was eating lunch with a friend of my cousin's, who happens to be an expert in sea level rise. And the one thing that was strange about that day is the bay was actually above the road that goes to the Spinnaker. It was a king's tide. And that person was a fellow that had realized that all this data needed to be communicated in a manner that people would understand, that mayors would understand, that even people in the White House might understand. That's, in any case. So he wrote a book called High Tide on Main Street, which was the effort to translate the fact that the ocean goes up and down 400 feet every 100,000 years. And then we have about 34 feet more to go, if I recollect the right number. And that's if not another inch of ice melts in Greenland and the oceans. And he's shaking his head, so I'm going to stop right there and get myself corrected. John England over.
He's really doing well until that last statement. It's a privilege to be here. I live in Florida, obviously a state that's often thought of as one of the most vulnerable. But rising sea level is not what we think it is. And listen, the passions and knowledge in this room are mind-boggling. And whether we're thinking about attitudes and youth and music and motivation and inspiration and plastics in the ocean, we could probably all talk to each other and enlighten each other for days. And I'm going to keep it really simple and short. I want to talk to you about one issue which is disruptive and it's counterintuitive. Okay? And it's a disturbing concept that actually most people don't want to think about. And I use it to actually bring around the discussion to a lot of the things that you are involved with. And this is an ocean planet. Sea level, as David did say properly, hasn't changed much in 5,000 years. All of human civilization. And sea level determines where the shoreline is. So therefore the shoreline hasn't changed much in 5,000 years. But as David correctly said, sea level was up and down about 400 feet, 120 meters every 100,000 years with the ice ages. That was a natural cycle. We are now warming the planet. It is already 1 degree Celsius, 1.5 degrees roughly, just rounding figures off, warmer than it was pre-industrial. We know that even if we can reach the goals of the Paris Climate Accord, we're going to try and keep the warming to another degree Celsius, about double where we already are. Some would like to keep it a little less, but most scientists don't think we can even make the 2 degree goal. So whatever that number turns out to be through our best collective efforts, the planet's going to be warmer. And we know that even at the current level of warming, a lot of ice is going to melt. Not 34 feet, okay, necessarily is the number David cited. But the fact is we are going to get a couple of meters, 5 or 10 feet of sea level rise, even if we stop all greenhouse gases today. That's a disturbing thought. If the world goes 100% renewable energy today, not possible, of course. If we keep the level of carbon dioxide at 410 parts per million, where it is currently, we will still get many feet and several meters of sea level rise. Because the planet's warmer and the ice on Greenland and Antarctica is going to continue to melt. That's a sobering thought. And most people would like to ignore it. They'd say, let's just think positive thoughts and let's just get the greenhouse gases down and let's educate people. There's 7.5 billion people headed to 10 billion people on this planet. That's reality. And while it's a disturbing thought, I like to turn it around to an inspirational thought. Because you can't argue with sea level. And the glaciers in Antarctica and Greenland are going to melt whether you're a Republican or Democrat, because the world's warmer and ice melts at 32 degrees, 0 Celsius.
You were in disagreement, what was it like?
A couple of years ago, it's melting faster and faster. I take leaders and military experts to Greenland and Antarctica regularly and to kind of see firsthand, because it's a stunning reality check. It's beyond what we can imagine, frankly. The ice on Greenland it's the size of the eastern United States, east of the Mississippi. That's how big Greenland is. 1,600 miles by 1,000 miles. It's covered by 2 miles of ice. Antarctica is 7 times that. A lot's at stake. How we frame things and how we get to people is really important. That's what you all do. Whether you meet, whether you measure it, about sustainability, whether you teach things, whether you, so on. We all have to do it our different ways. But I believe that sea level rise and the oceans on this ocean planet that we tend to ignore is a way to unify some things. And it's counterintuitive. Sea level is not an ocean issue, as I pointed out this morning to Alex. Okay. It's not an ocean issue. Sea level rise is a land issue. The ocean doesn't care if it's 5 feet taller, right? And this isn't about plastics. That's a big problem. Okay, but when sea level is 5 feet taller, 1.5 meters, the shoreline's going to try and move inland. And we can't just build seawalls like Miami's porous limestone. You can build a seawall around the state of Florida, and it's just going to come up through the porous rock. It's a problem. We can either ignore it and pretend it's not there, but that would be irresponsible and immoral to me. It'd be like a doctor, my doctor, knowing I had 3 months to live and not telling me. That would be immoral. If I knew I had 3 months to live, I'd like to know it. I mean, it's counterproductive. Badly stated, but you know. Because the fact is, I can deal with that. And we've all been in those situations or known people in those situations. The moral thing to do for the next generation, for our awareness and our consciousness and our planet, is to wake up and be honest. And the fact is that adapting to sea level rise is something we must do, because even if we do the right things with mitigation or limiting greenhouse gas, I hate the word mitigation, by the way. It's too complicated for most people, and it means 2 totally different things. It means reducing greenhouse gases, slowing the warming, and reducing flood hazards once we get worse flooding. So an uncommon word that means 2 different things is a word that doesn't communicate well. We need to slow the warming and reduce the flood hazards. But we need to begin preparing for sea level rise, and it's a way to get people's attention. Because it gets to real estate and banking and finance and insurance and engineering and architecture and all of the things they do day to day. And it's really scary to think that the shoreline is going to move inland. It may be disturbing, but I like to use that as a tool to focus the mind. Because it's reality. So, thank you for the opportunity. I'm around the rest of the day. I'm here tomorrow as well. I've written a book, as David said, High Tide on Main Street. It turns the science into English. We've also started the International Sea Level Institute, as I think you also mentioned. It's a 501c3, trying to be a policy center, a think tank about the issue. We're doing a movie about the subject, a lot of different vehicles, and I think I've taken enough time. Thank you.
John and I are actually doing a movie together on the rise of humanity, the unstoppable rise of the oceans. And we're not alone. Many people are doing many things to make a difference. And I want to introduce another person who's also doing a lot. Damon spoke last night. Damon spoke last night at the concert, the youth concert we did. It was a beautiful event. And Tim's now going to talk a little about what you're doing these days and how we can all work together.
Thank you. And you're actually getting 2 Dickinson College alumni speakers back to back. As I just
Wow.
So it's really, in a way, quite remarkable that in my life story I've even ended up here, because I came out of Parkland, Ohio, and thanks to my mother being from Massachusetts originally, got some upbringing that, there's a world outside of the United States. And found a passion for the UN and found a passion for environment growing up in the countryside. And those finally managed to merge together. And for the last 7 years now, after finishing university and my master's, have been in the international youth climate space, which mostly surrounds these technical negotiations which happen for now 24 years this December, and has seen the Paris Agreement, but now government's still grappling with what do you do about it in spite of the urgency, as we've just heard. And in those years, I've been going head to head with the many challenges and barriers which are facing effective youth engagement on climate action. So in the context of this gathering, I really want to quickly set the stage of what are some of those barriers, but then more importantly, what are some of the insights I've discovered recently, especially for how to break through that, so that we're really all collectively going to be able to move forward together on that. And it's important to say that it's a broad umbrella of barriers or resources which are needed. You know, money is one of them, but money is not a solution, let's be clear. Money is a tool which can enable and support solutions, but you can't just throw money at these problems. And as David mentioned, you know, the money is out there, it exists, but how do you channel it effectively into the good work that needs to happen? And much of that is really institutional. That you have a lot of amazing youth organizations. You're going to hear from one of my favorite youth climate colleagues who's running Climates and all the great work that they do. But there's all this energy, and it often is a high turnover. Young people don't stay involved in this process nearly as long as I have for 7 years. You know, I've even been a negotiator for Fiji at the most recent climate negotiations earlier this spring on trying to get this specific topic even recognized in that space. And so we need an institution like the Global Challenges Foundation, which is going to be a platform to tie together all of these different initiatives that are happening and give them consistency. Because even the 2 most recent projects I've done, one of those was this Global South Scholarships. You know, government of Germany, we convinced them, give us money. Global South youth need to be at the climate conference you're hosting, and especially youth from small island states, least developed countries on the front lines, really. And we got them there. We didn't just get them there. Many of them were brand new to them. So I oversaw the capacity building and training program so that both online and then in person, they knew what to do when they got there. And they were really effective. And then we had the project for this first ever Action for Climate Empowerment Youth Forum. And we said, again, you need to have the Global South inclusion, and we got it. But those are both one-off projects. Now, they were hard to pull off. I'm immensely proud of those projects. Those good and nightmare memories will stay with me, and the lessons learned from all that. But it needs to continue. Where is the consistency? And now there's all these, you've empowered these young people, they could do amazing projects, but how do you then enable those projects to happen? You know, our budgets for these one-off events finished. So money is a tool, but you need also that institutional platform. So I am optimistic that all of us with the different skills and resources we bring are going to be able to merge together and have that common platform that will move us forward on that front. And if the moderators are willing and keeping with time, you know, I'm very happy to take any questions about the international youth space or anything that I've said, anything else, because of course, you know, what I could say if I were doing a training, you know, we're looking at a much longer process than this. So if there's something really relevant to any of you right now, that's my priority to answer than to just, you know, continue on about all the different things I could talk about. So if there are any questions and we have time to take them.
About 2 questions, Max, quick.
Go ahead, behind you. So can you talk about generally, or that may come up later, but generally, next generation will be even more impacted, the youth will be more impacted by everything that's talked about here. How urgent is it for them, that generation, to actually start looking at it? How important is that as a priority? It's a big generalization, but do you have comments and thoughts on that? Because you met a lot of them.
Yeah, that's a very excellent question, and I hate generalizing too much, so I'll put a little disclaimer on that. But no, in my experience, I'm existing within the climate bubble of the young generation, and you'll find a lot of us who are super passionate, super committed. It wasn't my plan to do this, I just found my calling there, and they're the ones who are doing so much. But then there's a lot of our generation who they're caught up in other issues, they're caught up in social media, continuing on the status quo, basically. They're continuing to strive to exist in the system as it is now, rather than thinking of building the new system. So I think how we incorporate that is, finding the ways that we help those of us inside of the bubble to communicate effectively outside of it and bring in the rest of our generation. And also, it needs to be intergenerational as well. Like that I can't stress that point enough. I'm here because of the intergenerational partnerships with Miro and so many others. We need that.
I have a question for you. I was going to ask you, you're inside the climate bubble. I've been hearing from people on the inside the bubble that know a lot, that it's actually a lot worse than we even know, than the public knows. But I'm not going to ask you to comment on that. Instead, I'm going to ask you to comment on your SDG lapel. And do you believe that if we can in fact get the world to adopt the SDGs by 2030, that can really make a difference?
Make a difference, yes. Enough of a difference, that's the trickier part. Obviously, we should be implementing them, but as the science is telling us, we need to go farther even than what the Paris Agreement is telling us to do. So, absolutely, yes, I'm glad we have all of these, and we'd better implement them, and that will help, but that's only one more step.
Last question.
Frank. So my experience of working with youth in the climate space, I'm just interested in your reflection on this, is that adults, when they hear what John said, tend to go into paralysis and an avoidance more than they go into stepping forward into the solution. But when I work with youth, I find that the acceptance of the challenge and the enormity of it quickly transitions into a solutions frame, much more, and powerfully so. Has that been your experience, and can you remark on why, I mean, we're here for youth power. Why is youth power so utterly critical to the challenges, as you alluded to with SDGs, and we need to go farther? Why are youth such a critical area to invest in?
Yes, thank you. I think to be rather blunt, our generation is going to be stuck with the future longer than everyone else who's around right now. And so there's, I think, a strong inherent motivation to, wow, like our future is in jeopardy, but let's do something about it. And if I'm completely honest, there are days where the pressure seems more than the optimism. I mean, I think that's something we don't talk about, is sort of the mental health side of how do you process all of this. But you bounce back and you come to events like this, you keep going, because what option do we have? It's what's at stake for us. And that's, again, in the intergenerational partnership, invest in the young people, because they are going to carry it forward. And then if you've already, the bigger the lead you can make with the youth in this generation right now, rather than waiting, is that will be exponential when we then have children and pass the torch on to them. So the sooner you get that going, the better. And we have to wrap up my segment now, but so my final point then is, it really is a worthwhile investment, and we can demonstrate through these institutional frameworks, through the experience that the many young leaders who have been in this space have, we can make that ROI for everyone. And happy to talk talk through more of the details and concept notes of what that looks like. But that's what we need to do, we're going to do it.
Thank you. I want to say that these kinds of gatherings do make a difference, because you never know who you're listening to, you don't know what's going on, and the brain does evolve with all the data it receives. I asked Timothy earlier, I alluded to the fact that it may be worse than the public knows, but there are also good things happening. Last night, yesterday I had lunch about 1,000 yards from here, and I listened to a bunch of people talking about new solutions. I mean, real solutions, like taking CO2 out of the air and creating building blocks and a number of other things, but people started talking about it, and there was some doubt, and then the only thing we could really agree upon was that the youth is the ultimate platform for what's going to happen, what's going to save us. But we can't count technology out. And on that note, I want to briefly introduce, for just a few minutes, Ilan Mandel, who's just going to talk for 3 minutes on what they're doing, because he has extreme optimism right now, and I don't think it's all based on delusion. Besides Israeli, they rule the world in cannabis, why not climate?
So yes, I am hopeful. I'm hopeful in light of everything that we've heard. The path that we're on, business as usual, looking at going from here to 2050, it's going to take us over the cliff and into the chasm. We know that. The good news is that there is another path. I'm the executive director of the Foundation for Climate Restoration, and we want to give our children a healthy climate and a planet that works. Anybody else wants to give the children that? And so over the last 12 months, we've been working with scientists and engineers to find a pathway to take us from here to 2050 with the goal of reaching 300 parts per million CO2 by the year 2050. So 300 by 2050 is our goal. So as a result of the work that we've done over the last 12 months, we now have 5 funding-ready programs. 2 of them are focused on removing 1 trillion tons CO2 from the atmosphere. That's what we need. We're now at 410. Paris Agreement is going to take us in the wrong direction to 450 and above. So we want to change direction and we want to move back to 300 parts per million. That's the climate that we had about 100 and more years ago. That's the healthy climate that humanity has evolved in. We don't know that we can survive in anything over 350. So we have 2 programs that are focused on removing 1 trillion tons CO2 from the atmosphere. One program is about taking the CO2, converting that into aggregate, and using that for construction. So if we take all of the trillion ton of the atmosphere and supply the demand for construction, we can remove that trillion ton CO2 within 30 to 40 years. Another program is about taking the CO2 and using natural processes in ocean ecosystems to restore, regenerate ocean ecosystem, the fish, the seaweed, the coral reefs, the shellfish, and so on, sequestering CO2 from the atmosphere. Carbon is the basis for life, and that also can sequester large amounts of CO2. We have 2 other programs that are focused on restoring the Arctic ice, including the planet, which is what we need to do urgently right now to handle the jet stream and the extreme weather patterns. And then the 5th program is how we're going to pay for it. So we just started a fundraising campaign 2 days ago, raising $20 million in philanthropic donations to get these 5 programs going as early as Q1 of next year. So thank you very much.
I would love to see Ilan and John sit down over a dinner and see what would happen. Oh, that's right.
I'm involved.
Because this would be a great conversation. Because if you convince John, then I believe it's going to happen. So I've been working with John for a couple of years. You talked about removing how much CO2 out there?
1 trillion tons.
1 trillion tons. One can do that, but one must measure it. And a lot of measurement people. I only realized recently that there's a whole science of measurement called metrology. And everybody says the same thing. You mean meteorology? But no, it's metrology. I was recently in London meeting with the former Citibanker in charge of all of Europe until she woke up one day and started thinking about her children and realized this is not what I need to do with my life. She hooked up with the largest think tank in Europe, 2,500 PhDs, dedicated solely to the whims of the sovereign foundation of Sweden, the Nova. And there was a third partner with them that they were trying to coordinate with. We goes, we're sorry, he's an American. He lives in some place called Sausalito. And I said, where? She goes, by Molly Stone's, which is where I live too. And anyway, I got to meet Dr. William Fisher. And so William has been assessing the industry of measurement. And there's really not a lot we can actually do until we actually come up with a real measurement. Not the kind of measurements people do, and mostly not the kind of measurements that people hypothecate, because they're not accurate. So William is going to spend just a few minutes to talk to you about this new measurement called a unit of sustainability.
Thank you. I can't believe I'm here, actually. Thanks for getting me out of my hermit's cave in Sausalito.
You're modest.
That's a bit of an exaggeration because the work I'm doing takes me around the world. Just in the last year, I've been to Singapore, Macau, Australia, Sweden, England, Egypt,
Fremont,
all these places. Because there's such demand for higher quality information in the world. And what we're doing, actually, this is the stunning thing. I feel this affinity with everybody in the room. You're talking about getting data from individuals, sea level rise. I did a study on mindfulness years ago showing the effects of mindfulness practice are rigorously measurable, reproducible, transferable. We need to, and this was in classrooms, so we need to talk more. What we're doing is harmonizing relationships. We're tuning the instruments of psychology and the social sciences and natural resource management to harmonize relationships. This concept that we can tune the instruments, and this is a direct analogy from what Bach's point was in the well-tempered clavier. He changed keys 32 times without retuning the instrument. That was his whole point. All the advantages that you get from a well-tempered tuning system. We have mathematically analogous methods for tuning assessments, tests, surveys, rankings. The public consciousness just has not encountered. There's math involved, you know. It's very technical. But we've gotten so far in the research and practice in this area, which is over 90 years old. There are tens of thousands of research publications out there. These methods are hidden in the technical black boxes of all kinds of applications in healthcare, education, social services, et cetera, et cetera. We've gotten so far with this. 2 years ago, my buddy Mark Wilson and I at UC Berkeley, we're both in the Graduate School of Education there. 2 years ago, we hosted a small international meeting of metrologists, the physicists and engineers who run the metric system. They work in national metrology institutes around the world, and for the first time, of the 70 people at the meeting at Berkeley, half of them were psychologists and social scientists. Last week in Belfast, at the big meeting of that organization, the International Measurement Confederation, at the World Congress in Belfast last week, with 700 people in attendance, we had a special session on social and psychological measurement, where me and my colleagues from Australia, Austria, England, and other countries, Macau, we gave a series of presentations in association with our metrologist colleagues we've been working with, presenting the viability of a new metric system for education, natural resource management, social services, etc. The metrologists are in. They're extremely excited. National metrology institutes around the world are beginning projects to check this out and start a movement towards defining a new system of units in a whole new areas. What we're going to be doing here, this is part of what's mind-boggling in the world right now. It's amazing we're doing as well as we are. There are 4 major forms of capital in the economy. Manufacturing is the only one with a metric system. We don't have common languages for valuing human, social, and natural. It's amazing we're doing as well as we are.
How about sustainability?
When we have those metrics, I beg to differ, gently and kindly. I think we need more competition. We need to be able to compete on producing sustainability. Let's set up competitive markets.
You talked about something called a unit of sustainability as a way to finally measure how we're doing.
It's going to be, it won't be 17 units probably like there are in the SDGs. There's overlaps in the SDGs. We're going to have some, we've got 7 main units in the existing metric system. Maybe it's going to be 7 more, I don't know. Human abilities, numeracy, literacy, health, functionality, social capital, trustworthiness, loyalty, and then natural resources. This has got to be a collective process. This is going to, having a common language will enable us to pull together in whole new ways. The collective spirit, I feel like it's a catalytic moment. It's almost like maybe this is the week where it happens, where the penny drops and everybody goes.
And I can see, in closing, I can see how a means of measurement would enable you to, we have to go to the next meeting, but would enable you to measure humanity as we come together in competition.
Yeah. Yes. And just think of high quality information and a common language. This is harmonizing relationships, tuning our interests. Because it's, and in that tuning, keep in mind, world music and jazz, we don't have a iron cage of conformity to the tuning, right? Joni Mitchell has 32 different tunings.
Okay. Hello everybody, welcome to our Give Youth a Chance Call for Resources for Youth Climate Action Philanthropy meeting here. I'm Miroslav Polzer. I'm the founder of this multi-stakeholder partnership GloCha, and we are delighted to have you with us.
It's your host, this was his idea.
I will explain later a little bit more about our work, but I would like to give the floor to our friend Tom Baumann, the co-chair of the Climate Change Coalition, which is the leading network of experts, public sector representatives, scientists, entrepreneurs who are looking how to harness the potentials of blockchain technology for climate action. And I'm a proud partner and member of this coalition, and we've had a meeting on Tuesday, also a California Global Climate Action affiliate event about blockchain for enhanced climate action, and the subtitle was Cooperation and Resource Mobilization. And it's my firm belief that investing in this kind of technological initiative is such a key to a better world. And Tom, please explain us a little bit more about your work.
Thank you very much, Miroslav. I'm surprised to be up here. As you can tell, I'm well dressed.
You're dressed the way we all want to be dressed.
Yeah, well, it's Friday. I thought I could get away with it. It's been a fantastic event, really interesting speakers, and thank you again, Miroslav, for having me. And thanks for all your assistance with getting the Climate Change Coalition to where it is today. It was launched at the second anniversary of Paris Agreement, just on the heels of COP23, where there were an enormous number of blockchain events. Sort of out of the blue, I've been working on blockchain for about 3.5 years. And at COP23, there were so many events we couldn't actually participate at all of them. Triple booked, and this was the COP UN meeting, which is all the policymakers and so on. And so we decided right then and there, let's create a great big global initiative. We started with 12 organizations and we just passed 125 at our second meeting only, which is here in San Francisco. I can see a few members right there, I think from the very beginning as well. And so it's a diverse global stakeholder community for big organizations like PwCs and governments, academia, small organizations that are regional, all starting to use blockchain in a variety of different applications. And the organization is really about how do we work together to solve common problems, whether it's standards and taxonomies related to measurement of not just climate impacts like greenhouse gases and adaptation in communities, but also how do we connect with other organizations that go across SDGs, and how can we get the UN system to start cooperating. So earlier this year we have the UNEP as members, the UNFCCC, which I think is the tech group that supports the UN system. We're all wanting to cooperate, and how can we form a basis that's going to support a variety of innovators on blockchain technology, working with the climate entrepreneurs who are going to try and reach the Paris Agreement faster and with greater scale, and to be able to mobilize the finance to those entrepreneurs in ways that we haven't been reaching this far. So again, thanks Miroslav for giving me a few minutes just to say a few words about the coalition. If you have any interest to learn more about it, it's climatechaincoalition.io. My name is Baumann, and feel free to reach out anytime. Thanks.
Baumann, and as I said, the blockchain technology is really a game-changing innovation, technological innovation. We are building the accompanying social innovations that the technology take up, and really multi-stakeholder engagement in climate action will function. The big partner in this effort is Unify.Earth, the leading blockchain 3.0 company, and Damon is also a member of that team. And I was have given my presentation a little bit later.
Okay. So blockchain. I've been approached on blockchain beginning about 16 months ago. I said I don't want to learn anything else. I've done everything since Windows. I helped start a bunch of companies. And I said no the first time, no the second time, yes the third time, and wow, the current time. And part of what I've met is Colonel Arnold Traub, who is an amazing man who honored this country in wonderful ways as a soldier, and now is honoring humanity as the Chief Communications Officer for this company, which you're going to describe.
That's nice. I will tell you, part of my big happiness is what's happened in my mentor, Bo Rinaldi, who is the CEO and founder of Unify.Earth Network. Several of you in this room know of or have personal, decade-long relationships with this guy. 3 years down from Steve Jobs for the first 14 years of Apple, amongst other things, one of the real founders of the vegan food movement. Just an enlightened super genius that happens to be one of the most grounded, cool cats I've ever met in my life. And I will tell you, as a guy that's been around leaders all his entire life, definitely the finest leader I've ever worked for. So it's really an honor to be around that. Is that working?
Not yet. You're going to have to wing it for just a second.
Yeah, I'm good at that. I wore my hat to choose one. I'm prepared to show. So Bo, I retired from the Army. I immediately was working in artificial intelligence before I realized, no disrespect to the youth of the room, that like being a 50-year-old Army officer, I was having a little challenge with working with 25-year-old venture-funded, millionaires. I was like, yeah, please lecture me about strategy. And so Bo asked me, hey man, how's that AI thing treating you? I was like, yeah. He says, what do you know about blockchain? And I sort of repeated some talking points that I got from O'Reilly at the O'Reilly AI conference here, and what I'd sort of done a deep dive on Tim O'Reilly, another inspiring genius. And he said, hey man, I got something you need to look at. So I flew up to Portland, thought I was going to be there for 10 days, ended up being there for 16, 17 weeks, much to someone's chagrin. And we really did something that I think is nothing other than real human magic. And that is recognizing that this extraordinary technology, the blockchain, really, I think one of the greatest innovations of our lifetimes is now had some cracks in the firmament. Had some challenges, and not only just its delivery and its mantra and its philosophy in execution. You go to the original Bitcoin white paper written by Satoshi Nakamoto, whoever they are, plant that seed in your head. The intention was not coming through fruition in execution, where there were a lot of people that are just about cryptos and making money and getting rich and living on this alt currency mega high. Bo put it to me best when he said, hey man, cryptocurrency is to email what the blockchain is to the internet. It's like this much, and it's all that people are focused on. And the reality is it's so much bigger. And when we realize that what this is sort of an immutable ledger of truth. I spoke a little bit about this at that beautiful presentation in Grace Cathedral last night, is that once something touches the blockchain, it can't be corrupted, it can't be changed, it can't be altered. You don't have double spends, you don't have counterfeiting, you don't have falsity, you don't have fake news, you've got validated truth. And so, to put it in a rudimentary transactional basis, you're selling a house, I'm buying a house, I don't have to go through agency, I don't have to go through escrow, I don't have to go through all these middle players that are going to add more to my debt load. I can really have a transaction between buyer, seller, and make that happen. So it basically makes it a lot easier. Makes truth a lot easier. We're not going to do this?
No, I
okay, good. It's all good. It's all good. I've been doing this so many. I've been doing. No, I've been doing it so many times.
Anyone has a zip drive, I can flat to it.
It's all good, please. It's all good. So the reality is that Unify. What we wanted to do is we just realized that the spirit of the blockchain was really sort of being broken. We think that the 17 Sustainable Development Goals are literally something that if 193 nations can get behind it, there's something probably good about that. If we can get past all of our differences and realizing that like almost 200 of these sovereign entities that are nation states can agree that these 17 goals are realizable, are feasible, are achievable. Three things that you want to do in any military campaign: is it reasonable, is it feasible, is it achievable? And that's what we're focusing on, certainly from my perspective. Starting with number one, which is no poverty. There is more wealth and more resources than we can use on this planet. We just have it consolidated into a very mismanaged sort of industrial era, mindset that, we have a very small segment of the population controlling the majority of resources, be they capital, natural resources, or otherwise. What we're really about is recognizing that, we're getting close, awesome. That Liberian goat farmer that can get 50 cents for her gallon of milk at market, but she only gets 12, because she's got to pay off the market leaders, she's got to pay off the tribal leaders, and she's got to pay off the chief of police, and she's got to pay off the uncle that's overseeing husbandly duties since her husband was killed in war. She ends up living a life of poverty. She ends up being indebted forever. That's just not, it's not sustainable, it's not of interest in any, human system. We want to evolve that dialogue. And so in that, we aligned the, we really, and this sounds, let's go right to what we started with, meditation. This was a lot of meditation that went into this, and a lot of like really just figuring out what was missing. And we came to the realization, and Bo led us into the direction through, though he takes no responsibility for it, he really believes it's just a channel, to unify the Earth. And the Unify.Earth network is really what we came to make as our sort of mission, our company, and our platform. Aligned with the 17 Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations, we've made 1,000 upgrades to the bit core. Any technologists in the room, that is kind of a big statement to make, and I can say that with all candor. We found the problems with Bitcoin, we found the problems with Litecoin, with Ripple, with Ethereum, etc. And once we started to realize that, and once we started our CTO and small little 4chan Reddit chats saying, hey man, your stuff's about to crack, and we were like, who the hell are you? It's like, someone's paying attention. And they basically, we basically were a little bit of soothsayers there to sort of draw that to attention. So we're not going to do this. That's okay. Don't worry about it. Just wrap it. It's all good. I'm going to wrap this up because we don't need to worry about slide decks. I've got plenty of slides. You can follow up with me afterward. Here's what I would offer you. we really want to help people realize their greatest potential, whether they are organizational goals, whether they are legislative goals, whether they are musical goals, whether they are environmental goals. We have formed some exquisite partnerships because it really comes down to team, and I've never been on a better, more organized team. Several of my colleagues are here in the room from Unify.Earth. To timing, we know that the timing is now. We have a crisis that we must face that you literally could not have been more eloquently and elegantly portrayed than what you said this morning, Mr. Andler. I totally appreciate that. And we've got to deal with that. We've got an extraordinary advisory team to guide us through this process. It comes down to team, to technology, to timing, and then ultimately it comes to a global platform. By partnering with the United Nations, by partnering with organizations that really want to change the planet for the better, to help all of us live lives of fruition. I will close by pointing out that we're in San Francisco, the birthplace of the United Nations. We're here at the Aquarium of the Bay. That beautiful, beautiful episode in the film oeuvre of Star Trek is very mindful where, you know, Spock and Kirk are walking here to San Francisco from the Bay, realize that the planet can only be saved through whales. I will tell you that what we see is we're living at a real tipping point. And that tipping point is we have a choice. We can live, I'm a lifelong science fiction fan, we can live in a Philip K. Dick, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, also known as Blade Runner, type world where everything is scarcity and everything is bleak and everything is technology is our enemy and we need to be afraid. Or we can live in a Gene Roddenberry Star Trek type universe where technology is our friend, it benefits and behooves us all to partner with it so that we can really get past this like wealth hoarding, get into shared and become truly celestial beings like we all are meant to be, because we're just one pale blue dot in a galactic universe and there's so much more out there for us to explore, right? Unify.
I got pulled into this company and it's military people and it's a number of people that don't need to work. They retired long ago. The CEO retired 15 years ago after doing very well for himself. It's like that movie Space Cowboys. There's a lot of people that probably shouldn't be working, but we are because it's all about the legacy. Speaking of legacy, it was suggested that we all go around the room and introduce ourselves because we're all from different places. We can do it really briefly. And imagine you're on an elevator. My wife's European. She hates it when I talk about myself. But you have to when you're in New York or in the city. Let's go around, just give everybody enough data so they might know how, maybe the reason why you came was to meet one person here. So I'll begin. I'm a mental health and economic development educator with 2 entertainment technology.
My name is Sandra Quat.
David Traub.
David Traub, pleasure. Sandra Quat, my company is called 10 Power. We're bringing renewable energy to people around the world without access to electricity.
Sebastian, Rosemont, Earth Day Network. You already heard all about this.
Hello, I'm Ari Eisenstadt. Really happy to be here. Thanks so much to our organizers. I've been a civil society representative to the UN through GloCha, an ambassador with Unify.Earth, and really helped being a servant here for these events for the Climate Summit. I'm currently a PhD student at the University of Hawaii, looking at future studies and the future of sustainable development.
And just note that it's impossible for any of us to actually describe what we've really done because you've all done so much. On that note, Rick.
Hi, I'm Rick Vaschek. I work with a series of startups and work in finance as a background. And I'm here today because I support a small K-8 organization, or school, excuse me, out of Sausalito that really focuses on experiential learning and very in tune with environmental, international issues, and want to help try to bring enlightenment to the kids and to the youth. So it's a pleasure to be here.
The fellow founders at school, they played the Tykos last night at Arnold's.
They were so good.
Arnold, thank you, we don't know you.
I filed the calluses off my knuckles because I'm a knuckle-dragging infantry guy that got wise when I learned what Unify.Earth was. No, I spent 30 years in the Army, you know that. I'm now working with Unify.Earth, but more importantly, I try to be, through the blessing that is in my life, an ambassador for love and unity and hope.
Timothy Damon, you heard me, but if you want to engage young people in climate action in a strategic and quantifiably impactful way, I'm your guy.
Alexandra.
Alexandra Lutz, I'm from France. I'm the president of Climate, an international think and do tank on climate change. You'll hear about it.
Okay.
I'm Ashley Young. I'm also a civil society representative of the UN NGO system, and I'm a director, producer. My company is Sunday Fire Productions, and I've been involved with IAAI for a number of years, supporting his work and the work of other NGOs focused on the spiritual dimension of sustainable development.
Thank you, John. Introduce yourself, as if nobody knows. New people have actually come in, so it's good.
John Englander, runner group called the International Sea Level Institute, and our group about plain science and plain language.
Hello everyone, I'm Jessica, and as you heard, I'm Colonel Arnold Traub's fiance, high school sweetheart. I'm a 22-year massage therapist. I'm semi-retired right now. I'm on board with Unify.Earth as an investor. I'm on fire and excited and inspired to help people come together in joining forces and the coalition and bringing our Earth and people together.
And you won a dance competition on television.
I did. The day that Arnold had proposed to me at the United Nations, I was a guest on the Kelly and Ryan show, won a dance-off, became their go-go dancer that particular morning. Was seen by how many millions of people that morning, and was super excited.
Speaking of go-go dancing and healing music,
I'm David Gibson. I have a sound healing and therapy accredited college, and we've set up a whole research foundation to help change the planet with vibration at all different levels of health and autism and ADD and a full range of issues, including cleaning up water with climate. But I've also got a grant to create a major curriculum for 2 Montessori schools in the Bay Area. And we've created over 2,500 exercises with our 25 instructors at the school. And so we're getting the children back in their body from 3 months old all the way up to 18 years. It's a new curriculum for children that are starting.
You wrote the #1 book in the world for sound healing and for audio engineering. I am Walter Nachberger. I'm the Consul General for Austria. He had to leave.
Hi, I'm Ben Agram. I'm from New Zealand, working on climate governance at Oxford University, and helping the foundation start to give its money to work on climate change.
Excellent.
I'm Ilan Mandel, father of Sherelle and Elia, my daughters. I'm here because I want to give them a world that I'm proud of. Served as a captain in the Israeli Navy, 20 years in high-tech, project manager, and so on. I'm now the executive director of the Foundation for Climate Restoration, and we have a roadmap to take us from here to 300 ppm by 2050 to restore the climate.
Here. Frank Niepold. I'm a teacher dedicated to empowering our youth, all. I'm also a senior program manager at NOAA, a federal agency in the United States, dedicated to climate. And I represent the United States on education training and public access to the UN at CCC.
William Fisher, livingcapitalmetrics.com is my own personal consulting. I'm on the staff in the Graduate School of Education at UC Berkeley, and I would be completely remiss if I did not mention my good buddy Alan Schwartz's new universalcommons.com. It's a new project with a measurement challenge associated with it, putting all of our global social and natural capital in a universal commons where 7.5 billion people each have a share.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalia from Polzer and CEO of a healthcare organization based here in San Francisco. I'm a kidney patient, and I started the company to be able to provide more effective solution for disease management for kidney patients and kidney failure. So we're working right now on providing a better way to manage their disease outside of hospital. Besides this, I'm a board member of Fashion Week, and we have a dedicated event specifically for sustainable fashion, where we discuss and empower designers who come in with more sustainable solutions. And our Fashion Week gonna start on 20th of September, so I'll share more information with David.
Okay, thank you so much. Speaking of which,
I'm Melanie Weir. I've been a fellow with
Extension Impact Collaborative, a food system fellow the past year, and have spent the last 2 summers working with UC Davis and UC Ag and Natural Resources on youth programming in food and ag technology. And I'm currently working on a project with the North American Food Systems Network on their certification program and enterprise facilitation.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Glocha. I am a dancer, performance artist, and I performed last night with my Dave block and human experience. And I also facilitate conscious movement classes, like I call authentic embodiment. And I am the founder of Mindful Models, bringing mindfulness into the fashion modeling industry through a holistic approach to well-being. We provide education and self-development programs to models to help them to navigate the industry in a more healthy way.
Sarah.
Hi, I'm Sarah Maxwell. Good morning. I guess I describe myself as a honeybee cross-pollinator, cross-pollinating all the wonderful nectar that everybody brings here. And I'm also I consider myself the Chief Enthusiasm Officer of the Good Karma Movement, and that is something that karmic cause and effect of how we do business with one another. And I'm also very happy to be on board with Unify.Earth as the Director of Innovation and bringing a lot of things together with nonprofits, for the environment, for music, edutainment, and then making those measurable with data. So I'm really happy to be here with everyone. Thank you.
My name is Andrew Scott. I started a nonprofit called the Open Mind Project 5 years ago after finishing grad school at Berkeley. I did a Master of Divinity at the GTU, Graduate Theological Union, but studied from an anthropological social sciences perspective. So really looking at how we can bring people from all backgrounds together through compassion and understanding and contextual education on the history of world religions and trying to building the table that all people can come to.
Thank you, Danny.
I'm Danny Musengo. I'm a musician from New York, and I'm the singer of Gone Gone Beyond.
Hi, I'm David Block. I'm a creator, collaborator, meditator, philosopher, make stuff.
I'm a musician.
I make music and art. My vision and purpose for everything I do, ranging from the blockchain space to social alchemy to whatever I do, is to unify humanity by crossing cultural barriers with art and music.
Thank you guys for last night. Sarah.
Hi, my name is Sarah Lee. Like the cake. I'm a friend of David's, so thank you for inviting me. I'm a person who meditates 2 hours a day, but I don't have all the connections that you all have to that. Just my mental connections.
Just relationships.
I'm just interested in this topic. I'm a business person and I work in finance, but I also have a very spiritual lean towards how money is used. And so a lot of people come to me to kind of edify their business plans or their way they spend their money and their budget, so I can kind of meditate on their money, for lack of a better way of saying it, and then give them some advice.
Sarah has a whole practice around professional athletes trying to find meaning through their money. It's beautiful. Chris.
Thank you. My name is Christy Paola. I'm the Director of Philanthropy for Unify.Earth. There's a lot of us here. And my background is climate finance. Worked at very high levels to mobilize massive amounts of capital for climate. And so Unify.Earth, as you know, is humanizing the blockchain. With my role within Unify.Earth is to do the same thing, humanize philanthropy, and align it as best we can with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
You helped aggregate and move about $1 billion towards climate and also helped to found P8 and P8.
The PA, the Pensions Aid, yes, yes. So
amazing work. Thank you for your service. Captain Mary, Sydney, Jane, I'm not sure.
Gina.
Gina.
I'm representing a small science center in upstate New York called the Wild Center. But we have a global youth climate summit program that convenes students for 1 or 2 day summits internationally, brings them together, educates them, and then gives them an opportunity to write climate action plans to bring back to their schools and communities.
Hello, I'm Jean-Luc Michaud. I'm a master in social entrepreneurship, and I'm building a community building platform for social impact using cryptocurrency and blockchain to actually creating economic incentives to do good, using data. Enchanté.
And I'm also an uncle of 13 and a raging hippie environmentalist. So
best intro yet.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Sophie. I'm the CEO of a small family office. I'm also the founder of the Impact Evaluation Factory, which is a company that deals with measuring the social, environmental impact of startups.
I'm Shali Shankar. I'm founder of a fund called Eight Partners, and we invest in climate solution-based technologies. And oceans is a big focus of our work, and how oceans interact with land, air, and energy. Funnily enough, they're all interconnected.
Hi, I'm Margaret Stewart. I'm the Director of the Center for Earth Jurisprudence. We're a team of lawyers that advocate for Earth-centered laws and policies, with the end goal being the legal recognition of the rights of nature.
You guys can find seats too if you want. Corinne?
Hi, I'm Corinne Winter. I'm the CEO and founder of Mission B, bringing mindfulness, compassion, and altruism to schools, and with the hopes of creating little mindful stewards of the earth and to get them activated to do that you're all doing.
Hi, I'm Aliza Hava. I'm a professional songwriter with a passion for writing socially and environmentally conscious music. And I also worked in the nonprofit sector for almost 10 years as a former release coordinator for the Culture Peace Initiative and with the World Peace Prayer Society as a UN representative. And now I'm actually the founder and CEO of a music tech startup building business management tools for independent musicians.
To manifest their voice in the world in service to good.
Yeah.
Katie.
I'm Kayla Cardoza. I do PR for Companies for Good to get their message out to the world. I'm also working with Sarah Becker to bring good karma movement into physical products and services to bring more happiness, alignment, sustainability, and good business to people around the world.
More dudes.
So my name is Knut Balslev, originally Danish. I moved here as I'm an engineer, and I've lived and worked in Europe before I came here to the Bay Area 12 years ago. These years, last 12 years, I have worked with encryption software, I've worked with identity, and I've worked with payments. On the side, I have been able to help start up a company that has a process for taking waste wood and converting it to jet fuel for a platform for making renewable plastics. In addition to that, I'm also a mentor for a number of university entrepreneur programs where I'm brought in when they don't have the alumni that would need for their entrepreneur programs. I'm also on the board of a networking organization that is by the name Silicon Vikings. We're connecting the greater Silicon Valley area with all of the Viking territories, which is where I come from. So Denmark, Norway, Sweden. What?
Minnesota.
We are not claiming Minnesota. We're also not claiming England and France and the other places.
There you go.
Where the Vikings also had their business.
Does count Finland?
Yes, so it's the Nordic, so it's the Viking territory. So it starts with Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, Finland, and then the Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania, so the Baltic states.
The genetic marker for Vikings. Your pinky curves that way.
It does. Oh no, it curves the other way.
This must mean I would be bad with horns.
So, and I'm Danish, but I live in Sausalito. So, yes,
So,
we will
this is a perfect segue. I now want to introduce the person that made all this possible. His dream, and a dream he shares with many because he doesn't operate as an individual, but as a community, is to harness the power of youth innovation, youth entrepreneurship, youth inspiration, and youth urgency to come together in partnership with other generations to measurably bring about the change, or not the change, there's no such thing as change, the evolution.
With us. So we think a better world is possible, but we have to get there somehow. So, and it would now be good to get to the next slide. Yeah, here we are. So, and a very important window of opportunity in terms of changing the way how the world responds to global challenges is this Global Climate Action Summit. And the background is that for decades we believe that these global challenges will be dealt with by nation states and by the United Nations as the body which is is serving the nation states in this respect. But we see as regards climate change, there is this emission curve and this CO2 concentration curve is going up. It's almost like there would be no global response mechanism. It's really absolutely failing. The global community is failing in this respect. And with the Paris Agreement, the governments have admitted that they need the help of non-state actors. They have there in the decision, the paragraph, the parties welcome the efforts of non-party stakeholders to scale up their climate action and encourages the registration of those actions in the non-state actor zone for climate action platform. But and the challenge now is how to getting everybody engaged, how to incentivize multi-stakeholder climate action, and how to communicate really to everybody that yes, global community is working on this, you are not alone. And so where is this leadership for multi-stakeholder climate action? So anybody who has an idea, who is doing the job?
All of us?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's time for innovation, because it's really a gap. It's a governance gap, governance failure on the global level. And so we are saying it's time for innovative approaches to global challenges. It's time for a new multi-stakeholder partnership, a new quasi-international organization, the next generation of the United Nations for non-state actors. And we are building it. And we have here a set of social and technological innovations which combined should help really to get us on the level where we as global community are functioning and we are really delivering responses that are effective to climate change on the sustainable development goals front. Technical innovation is very important key. It's building the information systems that connect the local micro action with global goals and incentivizes it. We have global institutional innovation. We have set up the GloCha Global Challenges Foundation in New York as the secretariat and the resource mobilization and program implementation arm of a whole range of partners, including Earth Day Network, UNESCO Management of Social Transformation Program, Global Youth Development Institute, Climates. Really, in the end, there will be hundreds of thousands or millions of members of this partnership, because that's the next generation of the United Nations. We have the local institutional innovation where we say there should be in every city and in every local community a global challenges action center where young people and also others can come, get access to the internet, which is also not given everywhere, access to internet, access to knowledge, access to best available technologies to work on these, to deliver our impact on the sustainable development goals, and get access to funding. And for this we need also business model innovation. We have developed Agenda 2030 social entrepreneurship business models with UNIDO. It's the United Nations Industrial Development Organization. ARI has been with us. They are working on solutions. We have climate entrepreneurship models, and we are partnering now with Unify.Earth to develop the marketplace, the infrastructure, ICT infrastructure, blockchain-based, that will really support these new types of entrepreneurship. As was, I think you said, we need people to compete on delivering a sustainable development impact, and that's what we are aiming for with this. We need a new value-based global citizenship ethics, and we need a lot of communication. For this we have our Global Challenges Youth Music Contest, like the concert yesterday. It was really inspiring, uplifting. And we have the initiative City Climate Olympics, gamifying. We have the vision for physical infrastructure innovation at Global Challenges Action Network in New York, Center. And we have this resource mobilization, that's the reason why we are here today. So to simplify our plans, we are saying we have three visions. So one vision is leadership, and we want to build this global challenges, climate action, Global Climate Action Center next to the UN. There's a plot of empty land. There are 3 blocks, and we are now approaching the owner, and we are convinced that based on blockchain technology, fractional ownership, we could develop new forms of getting everybody engaged in building this, but also combined with these high potential global philanthropy leaders. And the data center shall be there, global incubator, and much more. And this will be the visible symbol to the world, visible communication that here the non-state actors are organizing, they are taking leadership, they are working with the UN to get the problems solved that we have. Another vision is mass mobilization. We have to have global climate action app on everybody's mobile device. We need to reach everybody and support everyday's decision in a way that is meaningful and rewarding. And the third vision is that there can be set up a global climate action information system that will really connect everybody and give incentives for decisions and activities in the right direction. And blockchain is a key element here. And at the California Global Climate Action Summit, we have had 3 affiliate events, one on blockchain, one on music, and one today here on resource mobilization. One of the ideas that inspired today's event was that there are these huge wealth holders, like there are more than 2,000 billionaires according to the Forbes list, and Bill Gates and Warren Buffett, they have convinced 183 of them to pledge that they will give back to society half of their wealth or more before they die. And their total wealth is, it says there, $994 billion, almost $1 trillion. So that means $500 billion is sitting in the air waiting to be channeled toward meaningful projects. And what more meaningful project than climate action? It's a matter of survival. So that's the logic that we said, please, inviting these people, although it's almost impossible to reach them, but telling them that this is the cause you have to invest in, and it's youth, young people, give them opportunities, otherwise they will come for you. But it's really very urgent, and there are opportunities. It's really such a great governance gap there. We can step into it, but we need the resources, and we have youth. And with this, I will give the word to Alexandra as one of our partners to say some youth perspectives on our work, and then we will turn over to Frank to say from this birth perspective and education perspective. Alexandra, please.
Last night, I watched Alexandra speak for the first time, and there was a lot of power in what she has to say and what she's doing because she believes in what she's doing. So please share how you got here and where you're going.
Thank you so much.
What's up? Victoria.
So hi everyone, I'm Alex. I'm the youth that's coming from you, if you don't really pay attention. As been introduced, I'm also from France, so I saw France is a bit present tonight. I'm the president of Climate, an international think and do tank on climate change, led by youth. So we were created in 2011, shortly after the inception of the UN Conference of Copenhagen, where in 2009, where the accord was not exactly the one that people were expecting for. So our founders came together and decided to reenact the simulation of these conferences of the UN with young leaders who would represent the different parts of the world. And they came to a successful agreement at the end of a few days, which really showed that youth was really willing to take the lead in climate change, and climate was created to really spread its energy into the world. So today, 2 years later, we are more than 400 members around in 45 countries and more in the world. We have branches in Mali, Nepal, Indonesia, Austria, and more to come. And we have 3 main sets of activities, namely being research, advocacy, and empowerment. So what we do is our members do research on topics linked to climate change. It can be migrations, finance, waste management, technology, gender, and we take all this expertise together to really spread to the world, to young people especially. We then take this expertise with us, and we do our advocacy efforts at the UN conferences every year, like in every few months as well. Also to global conferences like the GCAS right here. Also the national level, for example in France right now, we are doing a lobbying effort to change the constitution and include the planetary boundaries and the non-regression principle in the Article 1. And we really reached like 13,000 people this week
who signed as organizations or as individuals this mobilization, and the Parliament is going to talk about it next week, so we're excited. And then the last of activities is empowerment. So we have many sets of simulations, innovative conferences to really bring people, especially young people, to reflect, to learn, to change, to become leaders, and to take action. And so today, I think the need to act cannot be stressed enough. We all know with the last generation to be able to really take action and change things. And so now more than ever, we really need to have a concerted and also efficient effort as civil society. And that's why I'm going to also answer your question, why do we really need youth empowerment in this and youth engagement? We think it's fundamental because, as I said, we have the expertise, we have the energy, we have the willpower to really change it, to accelerate change towards tackling climate change. As my friend Tim said earlier, that's also why we need you, because today we really operate under constraints when we do our work. Those are resources constraints first. Everything we do, everything I just described, is purely voluntary work. We're not paid for this. I'm here on my own, well, my wonderful families also like support, and many people cannot be doing what they want to do because they lack the constraints. What I do next to all this is I'm trying to become a lawyer, and I took the bar exam last week. We also face institutional constraints, meaning we cannot always access places we want to go. When we are at the UN, it's somehow hard to get our message across because people are not always as open as you all are here today. And so that's why we really need help in doing those things. And we really welcome initiatives like GloCha, led by Miroslav, Polzer, biggest supporter in this. It's really amazing that people like this, who have the resources, who have the network, are really willing to help young people to step up. And it's also the question you had, like, yes, young people want to foster change, but sometimes they just really face so many constraints, it's hard to step up, and that's why we really believe in such initiatives today. And that's also where you all can step up yourself, maybe as institutions, as public authorities, businesses, even citizens, just really anything you can do. It can be like just giving time to speak, some resources if you have some, or even access to places where it matters, where you can speak and put your message across. So thank you so much. I think that the GCAS was really about transforming climate change into this opportunity for growth, for change, for better words, and I think it's the same with youth. We really need to give youth a chance to change things for the better. Thank you so much, and I look forward to being working with you.
I'm a mental health and economic development educator with a master's in education. And when someone says to me, he's the best in climate education here in the country, I thought, yeah, well, how can somebody be the best climate educator in the country? And then I found out that he's with the NOAA, he's shaking his head right now. But Frank, I'd like you to come up right now and talk about how we can wake up children, not to any kind of awareness, but to careers, to action, and to hope. Because I also know that there's depression and psychological issues creeping across these younger generations, because that's my background, because of what's happening. So tell us about what you're doing to overcome that.
Sure. So I'm present with that this room is asking me to go very different places. So bear with me. I like to speak to the moment as opposed to what I had to say before I walked in here. So first and foremost, I'm a teacher. I was asked, I'm going to give you a little bit of my history. Back in 2005, I was asked to join NOAA, a federal science agency dedicated to improving life and understanding about our Earth. It's a very large organization that has a massive, amazing mission. I came over from NASA, where I was also working with them on Mission to Planet Earth for a decade. So we've been working at this dedication of really trying to understand our planet, and then to figure out how to live on the planet for a very long time. But where we are now with climate, and they brought me in and said, you know, we know education is a critical piece of solving climate. Go. I'm not kidding. But I think, in that journey for 14 years, trying to explore that intersection between the massive education enterprise, the massive scientific enterprise, and society at this moment in time is quite a daunting, but it is the task before us. And I think that when you think about education, everyone has a slightly different understanding about what that word is. Some of you are thinking of a classroom, some of you are thinking of institutions like this, some of you are thinking about higher education, some of you are thinking about parks, some of you are thinking about your families, your parents, siblings, your friends. Education is a process, it's not a space, but it is a space as well, like we're in one here. But I think that what I find is being useful in looking at this intersectionality is that education is a massive, massive, massive enterprise in society, worldwide. And it is massively underutilized in the space. And I think that I would just ask you to think about, could you imagine us solving this without all the professionals who are dedicated to the next generation or the current generation understanding and becoming skillful in how to address the challenges of the day? Could you imagine that education in all its forms and its evolution, because we're asking for evolution here, not to be brought fully on board in order to do what has been talked about today, or what was talked about today? Can you imagine that? And that's kind of what we've been asking for at the GCAS. We allude to it, but we are not strategically aligned and drawn into the solving of this issue. So that is my challenge to us, is how do we do that? Because it's the scale at which it is called. So, one of the things that I've been working in climate for 14 years that I think is important to acknowledge is that climate change was not intentionally designed. We did not, humanity did not come together to call for climate change to happen. Right? It was not. It was an indirect side effect of a lot of decisions that humanity made for a long time. Fossil fuels did amazing things, that's why we use them so much. We never thought that we'd be able to use as much of it as fast as we did. Svante Arrhenius clearly showed that this was happening back in the late 19th century, but he never expected that we would go as fast as we did. So we're really ingenious, which is actually an asset, not a detriment. However, now we understand more and more that we can't continue that path. So the question is, are we going to intentionally design a sustainable planetary process that keeps as much of the ecosystem and humanity thriving as quickly as possible? Right? That's what's being called for. But that intentional design, so when you talk to schools of design that I've spoken with, Parsons, when they think about the monumental nature of this, it becomes very depressing and demoralizing. But when you think about the opportunity to intentionally design the skills and the abilities and the passions and the people, whether they're young, which is, and there's an answer to the question, and I think you got close to it. I think there's a little bit more there. But it's just tremendous to see how we can bring this in. So part of our challenge is how to take what we're doing here and bring it across the city into the central part of that issue. Because when you talk to business leaders and community leaders, they're running into some challenges. Making the case for climate action, urgent, ambitious climate action, is getting hard. And that's because they haven't enjoined us in their process. They're beginning to realize that some of them at least will elevate that for them. Businesses are also having some challenges. They're doing amazing things. So for those of you who are at the summit, you're hearing absolute transformations of big, big businesses like Starbucks, Salesforce, and international businesses, but no one knows it. It's invisible. Solutions invisible means there's no momentum. We are in the visibility business. So whether or not we align that purpose in here, that's going to be an interesting thing to go. But also the work at which we are calling for requires a fundamentally different workforce worldwide. And where do you create a workforce? College, university, community college, apprenticeships, internships. This is the work we do. Bring us into this. Allow us to go into this. So And the one other dimension of this that is also a critical opportunity, and Miro and I have shared this, is that we need to do this together. And there are intentional investments that actually enjoin and build collaboration worldwide, because I imagine many of you have learned of a new organization you didn't know of, a new initiative that you didn't know of today. I mean, I learned about 5, at least. And I'm in this business. It is my job to know what is being done to solve this problem at the intersection of education and youth in the world. And I'm learning more. So it means we're always learning more, which means there's more collaboration potential. But the investments that Miro and I have called for out of the UNFCCC to actually coordinate, I'm a coordinator. I know what this means. There's no staffing here, right? We're doing it on the backs of our own time, our own capabilities. If you don't invest in the collaborators, the network, the mavens, you know, the opportunities for collaboration and acceleration are missed. So the last point I would say is, you know, whether it's ECOS or this or other things, but that coordination, collaboration, enhancement function is a clear, very efficient return on investment. But the last point that you asked about hope. So I think that the hope piece is that what I gained from working with youth, and this has been my experience, is that when adults struggle on this issue, they really struggle on it for so many reasons. They're invested in the status quo. They are, it's hard to take the life that you have and think about a completely new reality because you're invested in this one. And it's hard and demoralizing. But when they start thinking about future generations, this is a core human process. It goes thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of years. We always hand the next generation more than we received. And that is a power. And so the ability to help younger people be ready to take on that mantle without letting us off the hook, because we're part of this, we're still involved. I'm going to be here for as long as I can, working every bit I can. So we're not off the hook, we're not out of the game. But we also have to realize that young people, their ability to take it in and then step forward is actually an amazing asset to bring to the space. It also reminds people who are older that there's a reason why we're doing this. Intergenerational engagement is a power that is untapped. Because you bring them into the space, and we always remember, we're not talking about RI, we're talking about legacy. We're talking about what is right. And that motivates more than financial calculations. So, you know, this has been my experience. I look forward to exploring collaborations. This is a very different room than the ones I'm used to, but there's wonderful partners waiting to join you, and hopefully we can coalesce some coordination functions that are more robust than our abilities to date, which is you know, the demand is outstripping the capacity in this key area. It's hard to even imagine how. I feel like I've got no thread on the core of my nut. But it's okay. We'll keep on going.
Right, that's one question for you. You're an educator, so you know how the brain concretizes around data. It's hard to break those neural pathways once they're set. Talk a lot about the younger people. What about the older people? How do we move people away from that cognitive, that cognitive process over and over again that causes people to deny for themselves what's really happening in service to their own vested interests? How do we get people to wake up?
Well, so this is actually...
I'm talking...
Yeah,
I
know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I think it is fair to say that the older generations really have not been engaged in this issue. I think it is fair to say that the scientific community went directly to policymakers on this issue. And then they left the public open and left them out of the equation. We have done a really poor job of really helping people understand what we're talking about. If you walk down the street and you talk to 1,000 people, 10 people, 100 people, they are really incredibly concerned at some time, but really have very little understanding. We don't teach any of this stuff to anybody above maybe 6th grade. You're self-taught and you're probably full of lots of misconceptions and misunderstandings, and and they haven't really been effectively engaged. So one of my questions for George, in this new space that we're standing in that is about to emerge, hopefully, is where is the adult engagement? Because they want to help understand this. And the amount of time it takes, I mean, students spend 180 contact hours in a year in a science classroom in K-12, 180 hours. Now, and plus homework and all that other stuff. In college, it's less but more intense. Where is that amount of time on the issue of our time for adults who are beyond education in lifelong learning? That is, it's not fair to them to criticize them, in my opinion, because we've not done anything to really deeply engage them in this process. If this is the issue of our time, we need to deeply engage them in this, and it's different than what happens in classrooms and universities. It's just fundamentally different. Adults learn differently. The science is there, but the programs are not. So if we want to help them, we need to make new programs and engage them.
Does that include leadership?
Absolutely. Leadership is a central piece of all of this, because you can be just as knowledgeable without leadership. So one of the things that we've learned in all of this is youth leadership development is absolutely central. Not just knowledge, the skills of leadership is that you're leading change.
I don't want to put your job at risk.
No.
But do you believe that the people upstairs really know what's really going on? It just doesn't work for their particular. They must believe these storms. They must believe that something's going on.
It's how do I say this?
And be
it's a direct answer. It's a direct answer.
Controversial.
No, I'm not looking at it that way. If you approach it from scientific knowledge, that's not the answer for this. You've got motivated avoidance.
Yeah.
You've got influential theory, where you're going on and who are you listening to. Clearly, we have leaders who have access to some of the most impressive climate scientists in the world. I know them. They're amazing. But they're only one voice. And it turns out on this issue, science isn't the leading factor. Like yesterday in the summit, we were talking about blowing up the fallacy of whether or not you can grow the economy and do it sustainably. And it turns out you can. But that fallacy, a lot of people are still following that fallacy, and they're like, well, we need to grow the economy, so unfortunately we need to destroy the earth. And that's a worldview that hasn't yet changed.
I'm absolutely confident that everybody will come to the appropriate knowledge. This is a question of
Through engagement. And education is actually the path.